Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Francis Pinola and I'm a personal development coach and recovery coach based outside of Philadelphia. So before we were discussing the what and the why of change, so I thought that we would build on the why of change and talk about something like our personal values and our motivations. And I believe that these are really important because by understanding our values and our motives, our motivations of why we're doing the things that we're working towards, it really gives us a better sense of our purpose in our areas of fulfillment, the things that it's bringing to us, and how it aligns with how we view ourselves, both, our place in the world, our idea of ourselves, that picture that we have in our head of who we are. And for me personally, at least, and something I think can be very beneficial for a lot of people, is understanding your values can help give you a place to view yourself from instead of viewing yourself based on material circumstances, material accomplishments, these different things like that. By viewing yourself based on your set of values, your set of core principles, the way you carry yourself in life, I think that gives you a better place to start from towards more self-acceptance, these things like that, versus something like self-esteem, which is usually more rooted in materialistic circumstances, but not always. So in discussing our values and our motivations and how they intertwine with one another towards our goals. So begin with get a sense of a definition, what we're talking about here for our personal values. And in this case, we're going to use the definition. I'd found this on Google. It's just one of the many definitions of values. A person's principles or standards of behavior, one's judgment of what's important in life. And like I said, how we carry ourselves in the world, our standards of behavior, how we conduct ourselves, they can be according to our values. If things, are antithetical to our values, we're less likely to want to do them because they don't help how we view ourselves. And one's judgment of what is important in life, because what we may value, what we may put our time, effort, and energy into, someone else, it may be not as high on their radar. And also these things change over time. What might be one of your highest values currently, may drop off after you've put different time and energy into it. You're not spending as much focus on that. Or something that wasn't really on your radar before now, maybe it's something like health, where you get a test result or some idea from your doctor that maybe you should, work on your health in some regards. So now health becomes something that you're valuing because of a negative circumstance, a negative stimulator. Or it can just be you get an idea, you know what, I want to feel more healthy, not because you've necessarily been experiencing negativity, but just want something that you'd like to work on. And it previously wasn't on that list and now is. Every year I kind of, around my birthday, for some people might be New Year's, I kind of take a look at what are different values, different things that I have been working on, haven't been working on. What are some things I can adjust? Is there a new area of focus I'd like to focus on for this year? And things like that. But that's going to be personal towards you because everybody's list is going to look different of what they're valuing, even currently at this time. So now we'll look at some examples of values. And I'm going to link a couple websites in the description for the video that I was getting some of these examples from, because some people will talk about values that can't be taken away from you. They're more values that are emotional in nature. They're less physical, materialistic, values. And they could be things like kindness, generosity, dependability, adaptability, perseverance, uniqueness. Whereas on the other side, things like career, things like finances, things like freedom, achievement, these are things that potentially can be taken away. Freedom can be taken away from people. Achievements, sometimes you don't get the thing that you're working towards. And how does that impact your values and your view of self? These different things like that. So I'll link a couple different articles with some different perspectives on values and how they pertain to our view of self and our beliefs and such. Other values might be open-mindedness, being honest, being fun-loving, being resilient, The ability to overcome different obstacles. That can be something you can value in yourself, that I can overcome adversity. For a lot of people, that can be a big value. For people who've experienced adversity, especially. I listed honest twice. Let's see, to be self-reliant, to be able to draw within the skills and the tools and that well within yourself in order to overcome different obstacles. And I encourage people also, another value could be to be able to ask for help. That could be something you really value in yourself. So self-reliance, the ability to rely on others, this balance of these different values in ourselves. For everybody, it's going to look different. Health, career, spirituality, having that relationship, asking yourself some of these existential questions, that can be a high value to a lot of people. Your friends, your social aspect, your family, that's for a lot of people, that's a big part of your value system. It's something that you really cherish, and that a lot of the other things in your life, your goals, your aspirations, they're highly intertwined with your family and the people around you. But for everybody, it's going to look different. For someone else, maybe they don't really have a big extended family. So for them, that would almost be like a material value. It's something that they don't have as family. So maybe it could be friends, the social aspect. So the more emotional aspect of that could be sociability, being helpful, being gregarious, being funny, these different things, for yourself that you value. And lastly, you put creativity. For a lot of people, having a creative outlet, creativity, creating, period, whether it's art, videos, music, building things, woodworking, like you name it, creating can be a giant value. I've worked with clients who get value out of restoring things, whether it's cars or projects, like you name it. They really get a lot of value out of taking something that somebody else might have thrown away and restoring it into excellent working condition. And I think that that's cathartic, and that really says a lot about ourselves, how we view ourselves, and how we'd want ourselves, I think, to be restored and have that comeback, to be valued again. And I've seen that play out in different circumstances. And once again, I think it goes to our values. So sometimes even these actions, these things that we're doing, like restoring something, it really shows our underlying values, our philosophies, these beliefs that we hold. Even if we're not really identifying them fully already, these are things that we can discover about ourselves, the things that we value, the things that we cherish. And that's kind of what we're here doing today. Maybe you're already far along in this process. Maybe you really have a good concrete idea of your values, but maybe it's good to take stock and to think about maybe how these have changed or different areas of focus for the coming year. We're in mid-November now, and for a lot of people, could be the changing of the year, could be a trigger for thinking about the things that you want to work on within the next 12 months. So let's think about what are some of your values, your personal values. And I will encourage you, get a piece of paper or fill out a values exercise. There's tons of them online. And ask yourself, what are some of these things? List 5 to 10. And if you can, rank them in order of importance, because I think by ranking them in order of importance, it can also give us an idea of how much effort and energy I want to focus on that. So suppose if something like health is kind of down at my 8 or 9, well, I still want to focus on it. Maybe I'll try eating better. Maybe I'll go for walks, but I'm not going to be spending as much time and energy as someone who that's really a big focus in my life, and I'm really hitting the gym and doing all these things. And that's kind of personal. For someone who that's not really part of their current goals, I wouldn't expect them or ask them to ever to go that route of a person who's really putting that much time and energy. Whereas someone else who, currently career is their focus, something that they're working on, then you're going to put more time and energy. You might have to take that from someplace else. And unfortunately, that could be things like spending time with your friends, being able to go out on these different nights that you previously had. Well, now there's other things that you're working towards. You have these other goals, these other values that you're working on, so figuring that out. And we'll talk about lifestyle balance at another point. I'll make another video on that. These videos could be super long if I were to encourage, talk about every single aspect of them. But to list our values and to get a kind of a sense of the things that we want to work on or are working on can give us a sense of where to spend our time and energy. So let's see. In what ways do your current goals and actions align with your personal values? And this, once again, this is a kind of a question to ask yourself when we're looking at our list of values. How do your current daily habits, your current practices, your current, schedule, the different aspects of your life, how do they work with your personal values? Do they align? Are there areas where they don't align with your personal values, and there might be things that you could adjust or eliminate from your life because you realize they're not helping you live out these values? Are there things that you can add in? What actions, behaviors, activities, or goals might interfere with these values as well as might enhance these values? Sometimes if one of your values is family and friends and you realize, wow, I've actually been spending so much time working on these other things that I've really been neglecting some of my relationships. I have calls and texts and I'm not returning, I'm canceling plans with people because I've been focusing on these other things. And that's that balance. Maybe that's really kind of what we need to do in a short term for our current goals, but recognizing that it's not sustainable long term. There are times you realize, okay, actually, I've kind of met some of these goals I've been working on. Now, how can I readjust and maybe reincorporate some of these things back into my life, whether it's my social circle, reconnecting? Because it's tough to really do all these things at once, to work on your career, to have a good relationship, whether it's a personal relationship with a partner, family and friend relationships, still maintain, your self-care and practicing your personal, mental, physical, emotional well-being, coping skills and techniques and strategies, all these different things. Like, it's a lot to be an adult, honestly, so to work on all these things at once is kind of tough. So recognizing where we can make adjustments at, where can we spend more time and energy? Maybe you haven't been putting as much time and energy in your self-care. Maybe that's the area that you've been really slacking on. Or maybe it's time to dial back some of the other areas and start practicing some self-care. And what are some small steps you can take to bring these values into your life on a daily basis? And suppose some of these values are something like kindness, generosity. How can we be more kind, to the people around us? How can we be more thoughtful? If you have the ability to be more generous, sometimes that's generous with your time, putting these different values into action in our lives. If we focus on being healthy, what are the different steps I can take on a daily basis in order to work on some of these things? And actually, I'll go back to some of the different values, like how can we be more honest? Next time we feel ourselves, if somebody asks us a question, like, I like radical honesty. If someone says, oh, how are you doing, instead of saying, oh, everything's fine, let them in. I think by being more open and being more honest about how it is to be a human being, we can really get past a lot of the surface level stuff and start working on some of these issues. Because clearly, if there's a lot of people that have different issues, whether it's mental health, depression type issues, anxieties, different things, and people aren't talking about it, and everyone's saying, I'm fine, everything's fine. It sounds like we're not actually working on this stuff. So maybe by taking the time to slow down and recognize our shared humanity, recognizing some of these difficulties and challenges that a lot of us face, that we can begin to have these discussions and really make progress and move forward, in some of these different areas. How can I practice some of my perseverance? How can I practice my uniqueness? What are different things I can do to show my personality? Or maybe next time that you're feeling a bit embarrassed of something that you like I tell people, be unabashed in the things that you enjoy. If there's a song or there's some, a show, some guilty pleasure that you're afraid to tell people you like, tell people you like it. I think it encourages other people to put themselves out there. Don't be too cool for anything in this life. If you enjoy it, enjoy it. I mean, I'm not sure how many years every one of us gets, but why not enjoy the things that you like? And it seems silly to me to neglect these things or act like I don't like it because of a fear of what somebody else might think. That's just silly. So let's see, same thing, for our different spirituality. How can I put spiritual practices into my life on a daily basis? Maybe that's developing your own conversations with the universe, whatever you want to call it. It's, or yoga, meditation, Tai Chi, going to church, prayer, these different things, however it looks like for you. We mentioned friends, family, practicing your creativity, your hobbies. What are different things you can do in your daily life? How can you be more open minded in your daily life? Like the list goes on. Now let's talk about how do the values and the motivation pertain to one another. So I want to talk about extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. And I got these definitions from this website listed below, very well mined. The extrinsic motivation is when we are motivated to perform a behavior or engage in activity because we want to earn a reward or avoid punishment. And to use like a recovery example for this, suppose that your initial motivation for being in some kind of treatment is you're on probation, you're on parole. So initially it's okay, I don't want to go into jail, so I'll try and work on some of these behaviors, I'll try and work on some of these things, that way I can avoid going to jail. And this is literally one of the things that happened to me. And then you start working on these different tools, these different concepts, and you start feeling better. And you're like, wow, like I like this stuff. Actually, this is pretty nice. This is enjoyable. Like I feel good. I want more of this. Now the motivation's becoming intrinsic. You're motivated to be internally. Now there's no force. There's no probation officer. There's nobody making me do any of this. There's nobody making me make any of these videos. Like I'm motivated because I believe in it, because I know the reward in these different things. So that's my motivation. And it's far more sustainable because once that external negative stimulus, or positive reward goes away, like I'm only doing this. Suppose you're working on your health in order to lose weight, and then you lose the weight, and now you go back to eating exactly how you were, go back to not exercising, living a sedentary life because, well, I achieved the goal, but you're going to go backwards. So now the motivation was always extrinsic. The goal is while you're eating better, while you're working out, when you start feeling better, like I like the way I feel. Now the motivation's intrinsic. Now it's not really about that goal of losing that 15, 20 pounds, maybe it's 100 pounds, whatever it was. Now it's about the way you feel. Now I like the healthy lifestyle. So now next time when I think about returning to my old behaviors, I'm less likely to because I'm motivated internally now. It says you engage in behavior not because you enjoy it, because you find it satisfying, but because you expect to get something in return or avoid something unpleasant. And I think I kind of covered that in my explanation of it. But being focused on that end result, everything is just this means to an end. That's when you're going to struggle in the middle of it some days with this motivation, the self-discipline. If I'm working towards my goal and halfway through I'm like, I don't feel like I'm closer towards my goal. Maybe if this is really challenging, I'm more likely to give up. Then I'm like, you know what, I'm starting to enjoy this. I'm starting to enjoy how I'm feeling better. I'm starting to enjoy the process. That's why I say get in love with the process. This process of change, having that faith, that self-efficacy, that I can take these motivations that start out extrinsic and make them intrinsic and begin to enjoy the things that I'm working on till it becomes a true lifestyle change so it can become sustainable. So it becomes intrinsic. I think that'll move us to our next one. Intrinsic motivation is when you engage in behavior because you find it rewarding, the behavior itself. And I love using the health example and the gym example because suppose you start going to the gym because you want to lose, some kind of weight, and you're in there and you go in there begrudgingly. And every time you go to the gym, you're on the treadmill and you're miserable and you're like, oh man, this sucks. I just want to lose this weight. Oh, you're going to sit here and do this for however long, and then you're pushing the weights. And you're like, oh, I got to push the weights that way I can get out of here. How long have I been doing this for? Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. And you're going in there and you're doing this several times a week. That literally sounds miserable. And I imagine there's a lot of people who are literally showing up and doing that, as opposed to showing up like I do, like, all right, let's get it. Let's see what I can do. Maybe I'll have a terrific day. Maybe I won't. We're going to find out once we start pushing the weights, but I know that literally by being here, even if it's not I'm hitting PRs on that day, that I'm working towards my goal, and that it feels good. I know I'm going to feel good when I walk out, that I feel that sense of accomplishment for the day. I know that, you're going to be able to, eventually I'll be able to lift some heavier stuff. If when I need to move a piece of furniture, it's going to be a little bit easier. All these different things, that come into play. It's that really cognitive reframing, the mental restructuring of the process. And I think that by doing it and learning to feel them physical rewards, like that satisfaction after you do, something good. And that's like, getting some serotonin, anandamide, these different chemicals, from getting these hits from doing the activity and completing it, as well as, knowing that you're working towards the long-term goals. So it's a compounding effect, short-term and long-term. Whereas to look at the negative, if I decide today I don't feel like I'm not going to the gym, well, now I'm going to probably have a compounding negative effect that could lead to a negative like balance paralysis. Oh, I didn't go today, and now it's setting me off from my goal, and that actually can be detrimental to people. Like I said, that negative downward spiral. Oh, here I go again. I'm not going to be able to do this. As opposed to let me just show up. Let me keep putting one foot in front of the other. The worst I can do is make a little bit of progress, literally. If I go in, it's not the best workout I've ever done in my life, I'm still making progress. It's okay. Forming an activity for its own sake rather than from the desire from external reward. The behavior itself is its own reward. And I'm still kind of using the goals. I think, keeping in mind our overall goal and motivation is helpful. But I think doing the thing itself, being able to be like, wow, look at this, I'm putting up, this is some new level of weight, that's exciting in and of itself. And I kind of change examples because there's different people with different goals. So sometimes it might reference recovery, sometimes it might be health, sometimes it might be personal relationships, your beliefs, these different things, just so that way you can give an example. And not every example is always going to apply or make sense to everybody, but by giving enough different ones and going through these concepts, repeatedly, the goal is to show it to you in different ways, so that way it clicks and you have these aha moments where you're like, okay, like I get what we're going for here. Because once it really clicks into place and how it becomes intrinsic, it's way more sustainable, which is what we're going for here. So now we ask, but how does that relate to my values and goals? And I've been using the pictures, these different people here. And before he was like, and now I got him looking at me more sus. But how do the beliefs and how do the values and goals, relate to one another? And I'd said, when your actions align with your goals and values, it feels good. I truly believe that true happiness that comes from within, where you are your own energizer battery, bunny for happiness. It's when your actions align with your goals and values. So over time, we can use that feeling of fulfillment, joy, satisfaction to take the motivation from extrinsic to intrinsic. And I'll use the recovery example again. Suppose that you're motivated extrinsically, by your family, the court system to be in recovery. And at first you get in there, you're not really into it, you weren't exactly ready, but you start hearing about these different goals, your values, and thinking about how you view yourself and how you view the people around you. And you start getting a bit of time and getting some more mental clarity, and you start helping out and, being a little bit of service here and there and doing things that feel good. And you're like, wow, I like this new me. I like the way I feel inside. Now you're way more likely to stick to that. A lot of this is the essence of a lot of programs out there. That's why you get these different commitments, get these different things that you're doing, because it really helps you feel this early on, the sense of pride, sense of accomplishment of the things that you're working towards. And then to use the health example again. So let's say that you have gotten a negative test result, your cholesterol, triglycerides, whatever it is, something from a doctor, and you start working on your diet and you start feeling better. And next time you go up some stairs, you've been working out and you're like, oh, wow, I'm not as winded as I was before. You're able to play with your kids and have more energy, be able to keep up with them a little better. These different things. You're like, wow, I like the way I feel. you're more likely to want to keep up with that. The motivation becomes intrinsic, even though it started out with somebody, whether it's a medical professional, somebody letting you know, or just to check in with yourself in the way that you feel. This extrinsic negative motivation, now becomes intrinsic. And I talk a lot about negative extrinsic motivators, but there's a lot of positive ones. You could be studying a subject just to get a good grade on a test. But really, maybe you should be studying the subject because it's going to pertain to the job that you're going to be doing, the work you're going to be doing. So why not have a voracious appetite for that knowledge just because you know it may apply, instead of just to get a really good grade on the test itself? Like, to me, that seems like a far more sustainable and better goal of learning the material than just to pass the test, because it should be about the work itself based on my values. And so I want to talk about, how some of these pertain to one another. So we talk about like health and exercise, let's talk about kindness. So to be kind, maybe you're working on the actual goals to be more thoughtful, to be more mindful, work on your mindfulness. Maybe if your value is to be reliable, maybe you're working on being more organized, working on your time management skills, because if you better have things self-managed and under control, you can better be there for other people if you're not flying by the seat of your pants all the time. Maybe in order to be more generous, if you really like being able to give people gifts and helping out other people, that calls for you to be in a better position to be able to help other people. I'd said before, it's hard to pour from an empty cup, so maybe if that's a big value of yours to be able to provide for the people around you, then maybe actually finances, these things, self-reliance becomes really high on your list of goals and values. Let's think about uniqueness. So if our uniqueness is one of the values we really want to bring, like, how do I let my personality shine? How do I really bring forth my best self? Maybe you're working on self-acceptance, all these different parts of yourself, and learning how to integrate these different parts of yourself and the things that you can appreciate about yourself, and learning how to bring them forth, embracing you, the different things that make you unique. And instead of just trying to fit the mold of everybody else, finding these things about yourself and learning to embrace and enjoy them and develop them, because what if everybody the same exact hobby? That sounds pretty boring. Like, what are things that you're into? And they don't need to be the same things that your friends group are into and the people around you. You can have a totally different hobby. Embrace what makes you you. And maybe you'll go through the hobby and discover it's not your biggest passion in life, and that's fine too. And you could try something else. Like, this is the process of journey and, self-discovery that we're going through here. Maybe you're already on that process and journey yourself. Maybe you're well developed into your different hobbies and self-care and these different things, and that is phenomenal. And then maybe you can help bring that to other people around you as well. So putting the pieces together, we're talking about our different values, the things that we really hold dear, how we want to conduct ourselves in the world, how we would like to behave, the things that we take a lot of, pride in ourselves or enjoy about ourselves, some of our goals, the things that we're working towards for ourselves. Some of our motivations and how they're tied to our values, and how we can kind of use some of our values to take some motivations that may be originally, outside of ourselves through a negative or positive, reward or motivator, to something internal, something that we can incorporate in our daily life and make these small changes or big changes in order to really integrate. And that's through our actions, our habits, and sometimes our beliefs, by altering our mental perspective on different things. Like, I'd use the example of the gym, sometimes compulsory treatment, by being like, what can I get out of this? The worst it can do most likely is benefit me. Even if it's a small bit, I'll take some positive change. And, once you start on that road and you see the benefit, something like being more organized, for a lot of my life, I wasn't around people that were vastly organized, and these were skills I developed myself. And to learn to be more organized is something that I truly didn't know the value and appreciation of until it was something I worked on. And now, like, different organizer, things that you can buy and all, like, I love that stuff. And I never would have thought that would be something so important to me. But, I love notepads. I love different things, like keeping my thoughts organized, when I'm going to make one of these videos, making a little outline for myself, these different things for myself. They're really important because it helps just your use your MO, your modus operandi, your way that you go about doing things in the world. How do we refine this process? How do I refine how I carry myself? How do I refine how my values and my actions intertwine in my relationships with other people? How do I bring more kindness, into my interactions with other people? How do I be more self-reliant? How do I be more organized? All these different things. And now you realize, like, hopefully, there's so many different goals, so many different aspects of personal development, self-development, self-help, and it really becomes this enjoyable process and journey of finding these different areas in which you want to improve, developing a plan, kind of like we were before with the change plan, and then working on them. And then as you see that plan develop and you see the progress, getting made, and you start to feel that intrinsic motivation, and you start to feel that, sense of accomplishment, the sense of joy and satisfaction, it's like, ooh, what else can I do this in? And here we are. This is why I'm kind of making these videos, because like I said, this become my thing in life, is trying to find these different areas that I can change, I can grow in. And, sometimes it's looking for a different way to put this information out there, and we're all growing together, we're all changing together. And, I just want to be here for, y'all's journey and my own, and kind of share some of this different stuff. And lastly, thank you. Thank you for clicking this video. Thank you for being interested in any kind of personal development. Imagine all the different people out there all working on these different things, on themselves, for other people, as a society. Like, to me, imagine what that could look like, where people are trying to grow in all these different areas. I think that this world could look a lot different, and I'm just for growth and change and progress. Like, it's my deal, so to help other people do this, to help facilitate this process, to help build community for this. Like, this is why I'm doing this. So thank you for clicking this, because it helps being part of that. All right. Thank you. Have a great day.